Na 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 na.
Well, welcome. I know there's some activities going on tonight in several different locations, and so what we'll probably do is we're going to go ahead and do our presentation, and then we're just going to go ahead and hang around, and so if more folks come later, we'll just do the presentation again because we're here until 8:30. We are from the Southern Prairie chapter of the American Red Cross. And I am technically not very good.
You can give the space for it.
It didn't work. We're located at 408 East Main in Ottumwa, and this is a new building. We've only been in the building a little bit more than a year, maybe 2 years. How long have we been there? April of 05 was when we moved in.
Year and a half.
Yeah, it's been a year and a half. And of course, these are the counties that this chapter has responsibility for. Appanoose, Davis, Jefferson County, of course, Keokuk County, Monroe County, Wapello Counny, and then Van Buren County. So we have 7 counties in our jurisdictional area that we provide disaster services, armed forces emergency services, health and safety, and community services. I'm going to do an introduction of the management team. First, I'm the executive director. I actually started with the chapter in 1990 as health and safety services coordinator, and in October of 2005, I accepted the appointment of executive director for the chapter. And my role is to be able to work with this wonderful team of members here to be able to get out in the communities and increase awareness and the financial structure of the chapter. Next is Ron Rowland, the Emergency Services Coordinator. And Ron will tell you a little bit about his position and what he does.
Well, basically what my job is, being the Emergency Service Coordinator, is I recruit volunteers, make sure the volunteers are trained and ready to go with the help of Deb and Carla and Mark, and we have 3 vehicles that we have to keep ready to respond. We've got the emergency response vehicle, the big red and white one out there. We've got 2 vans, and we've got a lot of materials back at the supplies back at the building that we can bring for different types of disasters. And I try to keep everything ready and prepared and be able to respond to any type of disaster we have.
The disasters, we have 7 counties to take care of, so he does 7 counties worth of preparedness. Ron just started in September, so he's really had an introduction to the American Red Cross, and his former experience as on the fire department in Ottumwa has really been a benefit to the chapter. Okay, next we have Mark Smoot, and Mark Smoot is the Health and Safety Services Coordinator.
As Carla said, she was my predecessor, so everything I know I've learned from her. My background is mostly emergency medicine. I was a firefighter EMT in Illinois, then joined the Coast Guard, did 20 years in the Coast Guard, time as a flight medic, ship's medic, clinician, and then administrator. All of that time I've been actively involved in first aid CPR training, and now my job here is to coordinate all the training programs health and safety wise. First aid, CPR, infant child CPR, pet first aid, family caregiving classes, bloodborne pathogens, babysitter programs. I coordinate all of those programs, and then Deb's help teach as much of the community as possible. I coordinate programs for all of the 7 counties. We have authorized providers who are trained instructors that work for companies within our area, and they coordinate with me to host training programs at their facilities. Most of those programs they teach themselves. We do have some companies that we refer to as full service, in which they contact us and with the training that they want, and then we send an instructor to them with all of the supplies. I also manage the logistical side of health and safety, in which I make sure we have adequate stock of training materials and order anything that we need and keep everybody else supplied that needs them as well. And I started, it'll be a year and 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Next we have Deborah Ogren, and she is the Educational Support Services, and she actually plays a double role with the chapter, triple role.
Friday.
Yeah. They refer to her as Girl Friday. She is very instrumental in helping these two out, and she also does some other things.
And to keep my boys happy here. And Carla. I started as a volunteer, and when I got looking on my card, I guess I started during the flood of '93. I didn't realize it had been that long, but I did a little nursing thing during that. I'm a registered nurse by profession, and now working for the Red Cross. My role is educational services. I provide the training for, when Mark sets up classes, I go out and do training, CPR, first aid, bloodborne pathogens, CPR for the professional rescuer classes, all those type of classes I'm trained to teach. Also have upgraded, and now for almost 2 years I'm teaching disaster classes. So I teach all those classes that pertain to getting people ready to go out on disasters for local and national. I've been an employee since 2002, and my first component to when I started was just teaching classes, health and safety classes. I also am on the CISM team and am the coordinator for that team. That's Critical Incident Stress Management. And we also provide service for all of our 7 counties plus whoever else. I was in Wayne County the other night, so any of our surrounding counties in our area, if they need assistance. And what critical incident stress management is, if the emergency personnel go out on a critical incident such as a multi-fatality fire or accident, or maybe it's a small little unit of volunteer firemen or EMTs that belong to a local fire that don't see a lot of these things, they are traumatized by those, especially if it's a neighbor or a friend or relative, somebody that they have to tend to that maybe doesn't make it, or a child dies, or there's a suicide type thing. So we provide services for all the emergency management people, police, firemen, the paramedics, EMTs, and we're a group of people that have been trained by the Critical Incident Stress Management International Institute to do those things. It is an international organization, and we also, there are teams all through Iowa. I handed you a little thing, there's like 13 teams in Iowa. Southern Prairie Chapter sponsors our team. We're lucky, we have a couple of Red Cross chapters in Iowa that sponsor teams. Other teams are sponsored by local fire departments or the hospitals. So we're lucky to be hooked up with the Red Cross for that. Currently, health and safety instructor, disaster instructor. That's what I do. And again, CISM coordinator.
Now that you kind of have a little bit of idea of who we are, we would like to know who you are. So we actually have some volunteers here. We'll start over here in the corner if you just want to say your name and what role you play with the Red Cross. And
Well, I'm Coralie Brooke. I'm from Fairfield, and I've basically just been through the training. So far, that's been my role, being in the classes.
My name is Rosie Esther, and I live here in Fairfield, and so gone through all the training and hopefully never having to go out on a disaster, but kind of ready.
we have a couple more volunteers over here.
Sandy Smith-Hart, and we are a disaster team in Kika County.
And I'm Wayne Smithart, her husband.
The other half of the team.
The other half, yep.
Okay.
I'm Jerry Kalman. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator for here in Jefferson County.
We're very happy to see you all here.
Yes, we really are. There will probably be some more showing up. So the biggest question, I guess, is why are we here? We're actually here because it is the responsibility of our chapter to meet the mission of the American Red Cross. And up here on the board, you can see the mission statement. Just jumping to the main on that, we will provide relief to victims of disaster and help people prevent, prepare for, and respond to emergencies. And in order for us to be able to do that, we've got to be able to go out and recruit some volunteers, get them trained so that we can meet the mission, because the mission basically is to take care of the people in this community as well as the other 6 communities that we provide service to. The chapter's board of directors, staff, and volunteers have a vision for the chapter. Our vision statement is to improve the image of the Red Cross in each county, to be an organization that the community can trust, to inspire a new generation of volunteers, and to improve our ability to respond when a disaster strikes, and increase the number of partnerships we have in each county. Looking at each one of those a little bit individually, improve the image of the American Red Cross, we want people to know that we will be here. A lot of people in the communities do not know what we do, why we do it, or that they can even call us. And we have found that out even more so just during some recent conversations, as a lot of people really don't know anything about us. You ask 10 people on the street what they know about the Red Cross, and maybe one of those 10 people are going to know that we respond to local disasters, such as house fires, tornadoes, and things like this. They usually think of the Red Cross when something big happens, or they're going to donate blood. We're actually wanting to improve our image of the American Red Cross in each county so that more people do know what we're doing. And improving the image of the Red Cross can also make sure that we can meet that second vision statement, that we can be an organization that the community can trust. The community relies on the Red Cross to be there in times of disaster, and so it is our goal, our attempt to be able to do that for this community and other communities. Inspire a new generation of volunteers. Again, we're trying to increase the volunteer base that we have. Currently, we have the ones who respond, probably a half a dozen volunteers who are on call around the clock to be able to go to 5 of the 7 counties. 2 of the other counties have some active volunteers already stationed there, and the fire departments just instantly call them. What we're looking for is to increase this in each county so that when there is an incident, the response can be quicker and it can be done from neighbor helping neighbor. By having somebody in each county trained, they have the equipment that they need. They can actually go out and respond, and then if they need backup, they can call us and we'll come and help them out. We plan on doing this by providing training right here in this community. We recognize that driving to Ottumwa is sometimes very hard on people. They already work day jobs, they're busy, and then they get off work and they have to drive to Ottumwa for a class. And so we're going to start bringing our training to each county. What we'll do is we'll offer the training, we'll set up a training schedule. Deb will set the classes up. They'll be in the evenings, the days, on a Saturday, whatever the community needs, that is what we're going to do. We're going to make it accessible for everyone. The training is, by the way, free. We're not allowed to charge for disaster training programs. All volunteers are required to have CPR and first aid. Those types of programs are the only revenue generation program that the Red Cross offers, and it has to be cost effective. But for the disaster volunteers, we don't charge them. We appreciate the fact that we have volunteers, and we certainly don't want to strap them down with a lot of underlining cost. And so the chapter assumes the responsibility for paying any cost involved. We want to also provide them with the tools to respond. After training, what they'll do is they'll be able to team up with some already active volunteers, go out on a few calls so that they have some hands-on with the paperwork and the process. And then once they're comfortable, we will give them all of the equipment they're going to need. We put together jump kits that has all the paperwork that you need to respond. Everything that you need will be right here in the county. And we'll do this in several different ways. And when we do a break-off session here in a little bit, Ron can talk a little bit more about getting disaster action teams and disaster captains in each county and kind of what our goal is for that. And again, if you respond to an incident in the county and it's a little bit more than what you can do, we're just a phone call away or a beeper away, and you can call us and we will be here immediately, if not a lot sooner. Improve our ability to respond to disasters. By inspiring and including a new generation of volunteers, we're going to be able to develop response teams right here that can respond quicker. Right now, if there's a fire in Jefferson County and they call, what they're doing is they're calling the pager, which is in Ottumwa. And right now it is in Ottumwa. We got rid of it for a night. That person then has to gather up all the supplies needed and drive to Jefferson or wherever else in the 7-county area that assistance is needed. By providing the training here and inspiring that new generation of volunteers, the response time is going to be a lot quicker. A lot of times the fire department, when they're there, they're thinking about putting that fire out. They recognize that they have some victims, but one of the last things they remember to do is to call the Red Cross right away and let them know that there's disaster victims there that need some assistance. They've got their own agenda at that time, trying to save property and life. So then when they do call, if we're coming in from Ottumwa, it's really a stretch of time. So it makes more sense to have people trained here so that the ability to respond is going to be a lot quicker. We'll develop the disaster response teams right here in the community so we can respond quicker. We're also going to be conducting tabletop and functional drills, which is a way for us to practice our response. What we're gearing up toward is in March and April, we want to go to each county and have a functional drill. Prior to that, we'll have tabletop drills, and the drill is going to revolve around a family or 50 families who have been affected by a disaster. We're coming up on tornado season at that time, and you've experienced the tornado season from last year. Tornadoes don't often happen in our area, but they can. And last year they had the tornadoes in Van Buren County, and we had a few folks who were affected by that. If a tornado was to touch down and wipe out 50 houses, you figure 50 families, 4 or more people in each home. Where are they going to go? The Red Cross is responsible for having shelters for them. And so what we'll do is we'll have an actual scenario, we'll tabletop it out, we'll practice it, we'll do everything that we're supposed to. Tabletops help us to figure out what works and what really doesn't work, kind of test it. And then our functional drill is actually when we go into each county. We plan on opening a shelter. We're going to advertise heavily. It'll be for anyone in the community to attend because we want the community to know what we do, and we want them to be able to see what we do. As they walk into the shelter, they'll actually have to register just like a victim would going into a shelter. They'll be explained that this is your nurse's station over here. If you have any problems, our nurses will take care of you. And they'll be able to go to each station and talk to the volunteers there to find out what their role is, about the training. We'll have people who have stayed in shelters or have received Red Cross services and volunteers as well, talking about their experience with the Red Cross. Because we want people to know that we are there and what exactly we do. We hope that we never have to open a shelter, but In order for us to be prepared in each of our counties to do so, we've got to do the tabletops in each county, and we've got to have a functional exercise in each county. This way, it's not just taking a bunch of training and never using it. You'll get to practice it at least a couple of times a year to make sure everything flows well. We will be offering training to advance to supervisor positions. Most of the training that Deb teaches is for basic training. She's getting ready to go off and take some training herself so she can teach some advanced programs. We might find somebody who is really great at records and reports. We have a volunteer from Keokuk County who does the records and reports, financial statements and such. He is now a supervisor, manager.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think he's a manager now.
On
But
a
there's-
national level.
On a national level, there are three different levels that you can do locally and or national, because all the training that you receive also gears you up to respond to national disasters. And so if you want to go to the big hurricanes in Florida, they may call it and ask if we could send you, and we would get you geared up and ready to go. But the training is all the same, and again, doing the tabletop drills and the functional drills really helps to be able to prepare for that. We'll offer the advanced training, so if somebody wants to go from doing, they don't call it a tech position anymore, but just from a basic to a supervisory position, we'll be offering those classes as well to get people trained, because we need people in charge. We'll need shelter managers, and we'll need somebody to be the supervisor over the mass care and over logistics. And we'll need that in each county. We need more than just a couple of people doing that. Sometimes disasters can spread over more than one county area. So if we have 2 shelters going on, the Van Buren County tornadoes had been really happy last year. They could have also hit Jefferson County, and so then we would have had 2 counties with the possibility of having to open 2 shelters. And so the need to have people trained in each county is very great. We want to increase the number of partners that we have in each county. We have several partners in Wapello County. What we have found is we don't really have a lot in the other counties, and that's something that we really need to develop. This includes shelters. We have several shelters in Wapello County. I don't know how many we have in Jefferson County. Do you know off the top of your head?
Not offhand, I was talking to Jerry about that. I was hoping that she'd bring that book tonight, so we should.
Yeah, she'll be here in a little bit.
Okay.
What we do is we contact churches, schools, large companies who have a lot of extra space, and we do a walkthrough to make sure that the facility would be safe, because the one thing when you're staying at a Red Cross shelter, what we're looking for is a safe place for people to stay. And so by doing some advanced legwork, preparation, we go in and we establish shelter agreements with the facilities and the companies. If a disaster happens, we know who to contact. We'll contact them, tell them what's going on. We may only need the shelter temporarily. It could be a chemical spill, and the people in this area need to be temporarily housed over here until they get taken care of. So it could be a shelter that lasts a few hours. It could be a shelter that lasts for a few days. So we set up the shelter agreements and we do walkthroughs. We also need to establish partnerships with other vendors, such as grocery stores, food chains. I don't think there's really any large ones in our area, but Sheraton, for example, has the Hy-Vee distribution center right there. But by contacting the vendors, the Hy-Vees and the mom and pop stores and all these places, and let them know that in a time of disaster, we may be calling them and saying, we got something going on and we're going to need to feed 300 people. Can we get some food? And so this is part of the partnerships that we develop, is making sure that when disaster strikes, we can go get what we need from those vendors and they'll help us. The next thing that we do to increase the partnership is community support organizations like the Salvation Army, with DHS, with the local emergency management. We know what each other's significant role is going to be in a disaster, and we'll develop memorandums of understanding so that when a disaster happens, if we need their assistance or they need ours, we can just go and do it, and there doesn't have to be any, well, you don't know what we do, obviously. We want to help each other and be prepared, and so that's what we're trying to do in the communities too, is to make sure that we have that support from the other vendors. As I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, a lot of people think of the Red Cross only in times of large disasters. Last year we had Rita, Wilma, and Katrina. That was a very interesting time for us at the office, and I always just love to tell this story, and not just because it's my daughter, but my daughter's name is Katrina. And during that period, she was answering the telephone, and she answered the telephone, American Red Cross, this is Katrina, may I help you? And so the person on the other end asked for our board chair at the time, and the board chair said, you really don't have somebody working there by the name of Katrina, do you? You know, but actually, we did. And she volunteers periodically for us when she can. But last year, when the Three Sisters went wild, a lot of people wanted to respond. They wanted the training. They wanted to go out and help. That's when people think about the Red Cross, or when there's a blood drive. But actually, we're there for much more. This was a picture that was just recently taken at a situation that happened right here in Jefferson County. This would be Deb in the back of the ERB. The ERB stands for Emergency Response Vehicle. We actually can serve meals out of that. And so we do some mobile feeding. But we're more than just large disasters. We take care of the house fires. If the firemen are going to be there for several hours, we're providing them with food, hot coffee. Hot chocolate seems to go over really well. In the summer months, we have the soda, we have water, we have Gatorade. We kind of figure out, after we've been to a few fires, what they like. We do a lot of Gatorade in Keokuk County, but in the wintertime, Wapello County really likes our hot chocolate. We have a pretty good do on that. So we kind of figure out what it is they like, what they don't like, and we gear toward that, because of course they're out there doing their thing and they need to be comfortable too, and so we try and do the best we can to help the firemen. But when we arrive to the scene and there's a victim who has just lost everything, or even just part of what they owe, what we do is provide emergency immediate assistance. Now, we can't replace their house, we can't replace all of their clothing, all of their bedding, their furniture, but we can at least give them a little bit to help them to get on their feet. In a large disaster, when I first started with the Red Cross, it was shortly after my place had burnt down. And what I was instantly thinking of at that time was, where am I going to live? You know, I was thinking of that long-term thing. It didn't even dawn on me I didn't have a place to go that night. And it didn't until the Red Cross showed up and they were able to kind of help me with that. And so while the victims are thinking about all this other stuff, you're there to let them know that those are the things that you need to think about. And while you're thinking about that, we can put you up in a shelter for a few days, usually a hotel. We can give you some means to buy some groceries and to be able to eat. And we can give you some means so you can go out and replace some of those clothes that you've lost. Then we also provide referrals. When they go beyond, their needs go beyond what we can assist them with, setting up those community partnerships in each community. We can know what other organizations will be able to do, and we'll send them over with a referral so they can get some additional assistance. Emergency responder support, and as I mentioned before, we go to a house fire. The firemen are going to be there for a while. We're there through the duration and we help them. but it's more than just a house fire. It could be a grass fire. We've attended many grass fires. I've been lost on a couple of them. I don't drive well on gravel roads, so I've been lost a few times. And Ron is doing such a good job of getting the maps for us that I have all the confidence in the world that I will get lost less. Not completely. I'll still get lost, but I'll get lost less. We also do things like search and rescue or search and recovery missions. We did one in Keosauqua a couple of years ago, and it was a 3-day that we set up, and we just rotate shifts. And we made sure that we had food there, because when something big like that happens, you have several people from the community coming together in an effort to help. And so we're there to help provide for that as well. In a larger disaster, such as tornadoes, floods, you have the cleanup crews that are out there. We don't clean up the debris, but we will feed the people who are. That's where the earth comes in handy. We can load it up and we can go out and we can feed the people who are out there working in the community. So again, we're a little bit more than just a large disaster. We go way beyond that. We're going to break up into little groups. If you want to talk to any one of us in particular, we want you to ask as many questions as you have. But does anybody have any questions right now? Such a quiet little group. Well, we will be here for a while. So if you want to talk to us about what we're doing, we have brochures over here. We have a little display over here, a cute little, really old uniform. We do not require uniforms anymore, but that's an old nurse's uniform, and so it's kind of a blast from the past. There's cold tea, hot chocolate, and homemade goodies. So we'll go ahead and end with that, and then you can just come and talk to us.
We didn't know he was out.
I'm the health and safety
Happy
coordinator.
grandson.
If somebody is interested in taking a CPR first aid class,
2 years old.
we even do pet first aid, so if you want to do CPR first aid on your pet.
Yeah.
So we go up and
Babysitter training,
and I opened
anything that
sliding
relates
door.
to first aid or caregiving of some
All
sort,
right, and we're talking
it
about
was my
days,
route.
60, 80
I-
Yeah.
If you want to take that, you just give us a call, send me an email, go to our website, which is on our business card as
So
well.
open the door,
And
not
you can
knowing
access
it,
any of
so I
that
have to
information
go
through
to
there.
the
Talk to me.
There
I'm
was
more than happy to get you into a community class. If it's just a few people or yourself.
Well,
If you are a business or are thinking about doing something for your business,
Mom didn't stick around. She
if you have at least 6, we're more than happy to come to you and set up a class at your facility. Or we can work people into classes that meet your schedule. We're very flexible. And, our job is to prepare the community. It's not at our convenience, it's at the community's convenience.
I mean,
If somebody is interested in teaching one of our first aid CPR programs, I can get them into instructor class. And then they can go out and teach the Red Cross program, and then they can coordinate with me on the programs they want to teach. If somebody's interested in disaster volunteers, they would talk to Deb Wilbur. Go through the disaster programs that she teaches, and I help coordinate those. Eventually, I will be doing part of preparedness as well.
They don't care anymore.
For emergency response, Ron Walton is our coordinator for that. He has the information there, and Carl oversees the entire project or organization.
but the windows are warm enough, you know.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Carla Weeks, and I'm with the Southern Prairie Chapter of the American Red Cross. I'm the executive director, and we're here right now in Jefferson County talking to people about what we do. What we do is respond to disasters. If there's a house fire, if there's a grass fire, if there's an incident that our local emergency responders are going to be there for a while, we're there to provide assistance in the form of food, shelter, clothing, mental and health services, and whatever that person or those people may need. What we do is provide the training, which is completely free of charge. We will train the people right here in this community to respond to local disasters so they can have neighbors helping neighbor. All training, again, is free, and all service provided to our victims of disaster is also free. And this is made possible, of course, by donations from the community.
There's a lot of different roles.
Okay, I'm Deborah Ogren, and I'm from Southern Prairie Red Cross, and I'm going to talk about the classes that we offer through the Red Cross. Health and safety classes that I teach are adult CPR, and we do an infant and child CPR class. We do a first aid class. We also teach a CPR for the professional rescuer class and a bloodborne pathogens class. Those are some of the ones that I teach. The basic CPR classes and first aid are taught every month at the office in the evening for those who just want to come in from the community to do that. You just need to call the office at 641-682-4571 and ask what dates are set up and the times. We usually run a class. It takes 3 to 4 hours to take each of those classes. Usually do those in the evening from like 6 to 9 p.m. or 6 to 10 p.m. Also, I teach the disaster classes, which are free to the public. We start out with Intro to Disaster Services, and then we build on those, and whatever your interests are, then we just have classes according to what your needs are and what I can teach. Go from there.
Well, what my job is to keep the vehicles ready. We have 3 vehicles, and we have to keep them ready to respond at all times. And we also have supplies and equipment that I have to make sure we have plenty of, and we're always ready to go. Do a lot of planning, pre-planning of disasters through disaster response plans and pre-planning with emergency services coordinators to always be ready to be able to respond to the disaster. We can do it more effectively if we're ready in the way of planning and being ready for it. It'll go better that way.
Great.